Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the class of Macroeconomics SY BCom. So, students, we have discussed in previous class about the criticism of cash balance approach of quantity theory of money, and we have also discussed about the Keynesian theory of quantity theory of money. Now, in that, we have seen that Dame Keynes has also given some views regarding the quantity theory of money, and today we are going to discuss about the comparison of these two theories, that is cash transaction approach and cash balance approach. So in that we'll see that how these two theories are similar and what are the difference between these two theories, and we are going to discuss about the Keynesian version of QTM with the help of income and expenditure analysis. So we'll be starting with the comparative analysis of cash transaction approach and cash balance approach. Now in this, according to some of the writers, there is no basic difference between the cash transaction approach and the cash balance approach. The difference is only on the emphasis. That means the basic difference is not there. Only difference is that they have emphasized on a different point. So what is the difference? Both the theories explain the same phenomenon from different point of view. There are similarities and dissimilarities between these two versions. So point of similarities, what are the similarities between these two theories? First one is both the approaches lead to the same conclusion, that other things being equal, price level varies directly with the quantity of money. So whether it is a cash transaction version or it is cash balance version, so both the theories are saying the same thing, that if other things are same and quantity of money is doubled, then price level will also double. That means price level and quantity of money are varying in the same direction, or there is a direct relationship between these two components. Second thing is, none of these theories offer an explanation of the changes in the relative price. So both the theories are not able to explain the changes in the relative price, that is comparative price. Fisher's theory and Pigue's theory explain the changes in the general price level due to change in the quantity of money. But in real life, it is a study of changes in the relative prices that are considered more important from the point of view of economic analysis. That means the change in the prices of various commodities at the same time. So that is your relative prices. Comparative prices change are more important in real life as compared to general price change. Now these two equations are of Fisher and Pigou. So what we can see, that Pigue's Fisher's equation is P is equal to mv upon T, and Pigue's equation is P is equal to m upon kr. So what is the similarity between these two? In both these equations, m and p mean the same. That means whether it is Pigue's equation or Fisher's equation, m and p indicate the same thing. P indicates the price level and m indicate your quantity of money. Likewise, T in the Fisher's equation and R in the Pigue's equation have more or less same meaning. T refers to the volume of transaction, whereas R refers to the volume of goods placed in the market for exchange. That means P and the T and R are referring to the same thing. The only difference is one is in money terms, another is in terms of goods and services which is placed in the market. So the volume of transaction shall depend on the goods offered for exchange in the market. Thus, T and R can be considered similar because both of them are saying the same thing, but one is saying in a real sense, another is saying in the terms of money. Further, Fisher's equation emphasizes on money as a flow, while Pigu's equation regard money as a stock, that is at a point of time, whereas the Fisher is saying on the basis of a flow of time. The former lays stress on the velocity of circulation of money. That former means Fisher. So Fisher is putting emphasis on the velocity of circulation of money, whereas the Pigou is concentrating his attention on the cash balance, that is K. But both the theories ultimately emphasizes the function of money as a medium of exchange. That means whether it is Pigou's theory or whether it is a Fisher's theory, but both of them are emphasizing on the function of money as a medium of exchange. The only apparent difference lies in V and K. See, V and K are different only in one way, that is, the transaction equation refers to the velocity of circulation of money, whereas the Pigou's equation refers to the K, which is the cash balance equation held by the community. So one is concentrating on the circulation of money, another is concentrating on the stock, that is the money held by the community. So K refers to the money which people would like to hold with them, whereas B indicates the money which people would like to use for the transaction. So the only difference is one is referring to the flow concept, another is referring to the stock concept. But this does not make any material difference between these two theories, because in fact K and B tend to reciprocal of each other. That means if K will increase, B will decrease, and if K will decrease, B will increase. Because if you are spending more, you cannot hold more cash. If you are spending less, then only you are able to hold more cash. So that means K and B are going to be reciprocal or opposite of each other. So we have discussed about the similarities, but there are certain dissimilarities between the two versions of QTM. So what are the differences? The first difference is the transaction approach emphasizes on the function of money as a medium of exchange, whereas cash balance approach lays more emphasis or gives more stress on the store of value function of money. So this is the difference between two theories viewpoint. Second is Fisher's theory explains the value of money over a period of time, whereas Cambridge theory explains the value of money at a particular point of time. Further, Fisher's equation emphasizes on the importance of velocity of circulation of money, whereas the Keynes equation is emphasizing on holding the cash balance, that is K, as a certain proportion of community's income. We have seen the Keynes equation also, N is equal to PKY. So that means Keynes and Pigou are having the same views because both of them are belonging to the same school or same Cambridge University. So Alfred Marshall, Pigou and Keynes, they were having the same views. So Keynes has also given importance to the K as compared to the velocity of circulation of money. Thus, in transaction approach, money mean to circulate in the economy, while in cash balance approach, it is intended to do held as idle cash balance. That means in transaction approach, they have considered that money is having only one function, that is to rotate in economy, or that the money is meant for the velocity. Whereas in case of cash balance approach, they are saying that people even would like to keep money as a idle cash. So it is in the form of a holding the assets. Fourth point is the price level, that is P in Fisher's equation, refers to the general price level. It relates to the prices of all the goods, whether consumption goods or non-consumption goods, while the price level in Pigu's equation relates only to the price of consumption goods. So it is a more specific that price as compared to general price. So it is more related to consumers goods. Another difference is, according to Hansen, the cash balance version of the QTM represents a fundamentally new approach to the problem of money and prices. That means it is not a theory, it is just representing a new approach to the problem of money and prices. So it is not considered as a theory of value of money, but it is just a new approach of looking to the problem of money and prices. Now, after having a comparative analysis of QTM, cash transaction and cash balance approach, now we'll study about the income expenditure approach to the QTM. This approach was also given by the Keynes, but it is in the form of income and expenditure, which is more realistic. So what does this theory says? First, we'll have an introduction. The income expenditure approach to the QTM uh, is also known as the modern theory of money, that tries to remove some of the shortcomings or difficulties of old QTM. It was held that the QTM was not satisfactory and adequate tool to explain changes in the value of money. So Keynes found that QTM, that is cash transaction version as well as cash balance version, both of them are not able to give the satisfactory solution or answer to the question that why the value of money changes. So Keynes tried to give a modern theory of quantity theory of money, that is the modern version on the basis of income and expenditure. The theory was based on the unrealistic assumption of constant demand for money and concentrated only the supply side of money. This is the drawback of QTM cash transaction version. That means they are Keynes is saying that old QTM was based on the unrealistic assumption that demand for money remains constant and supply of money is more important, and they have completely ignored the demand side. The theory is holding the view that the price level is a function of quantity of money. But as said earlier, several empirical studies have revealed that there is no direct relationship between quantity of money and price level. So empirical studies means practical studies. So several practical studies have been done and it is found that there is no direct relationship between quantity of money and price level. So as QTM is saying that whenever there is an increase in quantity of money, price level will increase. So there is no direct relationship between these two variables. Therefore, this is more so during the periods of depression, when it was found that the cause and effect relationship between quantity of money and price level was very loose and very uncertain, and it is very dangerous to depend upon on this analysis. So that Keynes said that at the time of depression the relationship between quantity of money and price level is not very rigid, not very strong, it becomes very loose. That means it is unrealistic, uncertain, and if somebody is relying on this analysis, then it is a very dangerous thing which will cause a harm to the entire economy. That is why he said that QTM's analysis that there is a direct relation between price and quantity of money is having no practical proof or evidence. The modern quantity theory of money emphasizes the fact that changes in the quantity of money can influence the price level, but by causing changes in aggregate real income and consequently in the composition of aggregate consumption and aggregate investment. That means quantity of money is going to cause a change in the price level, but it is not direct. It has to go through the other channel, or there are other components involved in between. So price level will change through the change in the aggregate real income, and real income will change the composition of consumption and investment. So that is why price level is going to change through aggregate consumption and aggregate investment via real income. So it is not a direct relationship. Therefore, according to income theory, it is the fluctuation in the income, not in the quantity of money, which is responsible for change in the price level. So it is your change in the income, not the quantity of money. Further, in fact, money supply itself may change as a result of change in the level of income, prices, and the general economic condition of the country, but not other way around. That means that that money supply will change due to other factors. It is not the money supply which is bring changes in the level of income. So money supply is not bringing change in the level of income and price, but price and income and other economic conditions are bringing change in the money supply. So the relationship which QTM old theory have shown, it is entirely reverse what Keynes was having a views. Therefore, the income theory states that the value of money, in fact, is a consequence of many factors rather than quantity of money alone. So, the value of money is not only dependent on the quantity of money. There are other factors also which are going to decide the value of money, and QTM has ignored all other components, and they gave more importance only on the quantity of money. That is why the QTM theory is not perfect, or it is not complete theory. It is a partial theory. That is why Keynes gave a more elaborated and detailed theory in the form of income and expenditure approach. Now, it is not the case that Keynes has only tried to emphasize on the fact that QTM is having a difficulty. Other economists have also tried to give the views that QTM is not a perfect theory, but they have not developed any theory in a very detailed and a systematic manner. It was a Keynes who has given a very practical and systematic presentation by the uh, income and expenditure approach, so that it can be proved that value of money is not dependent on quantity of money, but it is dependent on the income and expenditure. So it is the credit of developing the modern theory of in QTM goes to the JM Keynes, because he has given in a very systematic and practical manner. So it was Lord JM Keynes who developed a full-fledged theory explaining all determinants of income. In his book, The General Theory of Employment, Money and Interest, published in 1936, this book is sometimes also known as just the General Theory of Employment, or the Theory of Income and Employment. So in 1936, James Keynes has written a book. In that, he has given a presentation about the income and expenditure theory. So Keynes systematically and clearly elaborated the income theory. He started, he restated and restructured the QTM, in which he explained the effects of changes in the value of money on price level in terms of saving and expenditure of the society. So that means whenever the price level changes, then what will be the effect on the society's saving and expenditure, that he has shown with the help of income and expenditure theory. According to Keynes, in reality, there are various factors which determine the value of money, of which the quantity of money is one such factor. So Keynes is not ignoring that quantity of money is useless. Keynes is saying that there are so many factors which are affecting the value of money, and quantity of money is only one of the factor. But classical economists or the traditional economists have considered the quantity of money alone as a factor. So they ignored other factors. So their theory is having a narrow scope, whereas the theory given by the Keynes is a very broad theory, which is not only presenting his own idea, but he has also included the quantity of money as a factor of determining the value of money. So he has not ignored that, because he also belonged to the same group. So he has considered QTM as one factor which is affecting the value of money, but not the alone factor. So if all these factors are taken together, the theory of value of money can be easily explained with a certain assumptions. So if we consider all the factors at the same time, then we will able to understand the theory of value of money in a better manner. And for that, he has given a certain assumption, or he has assumed certain things. So what are the assumptions of Keynesian theory? First assumption is the total expenditure increases immediately when there is increase in the quantity of money. That means as soon as the quantity of money will increase, the total expenditure will increase immediately. Second assumption is all the necessary and required resources in the economy are available at the current prevailing prices. That means when the expenditure will increase, there is a demand for commodities, and the resources are required in the economy at the current price which is going on, so that the production of goods or commodities can be easily done. Third assumption is various units of all factors of money have equal efficiency. That means there are four factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. So all the factors are having a equal efficiency, or units of all the factors of production are having equal efficiency. That means all units of land, all units of capital, and all units of your labor are having a equal efficiency. This is the assumption made by the Keynes. Now, by keeping these assumptions into mind, what Keynes has said, according to Keynes, the level of income in the economy during a given period of time depends on the level of saving, investment, and consumption in the society. That means the level of income is affected upon the saving, investment, and consumption. So if any one of them is changing, your income if your income is changing, then your saving, investment, and consumption will also change. He points out that at any given time, the total expenditure and total income are always equal, because one person's expenditure is another person's income. If I am purchasing a commodity by paying 5,000 rupees, then the seller of a commodity will get an income of 5,000 only. So that means my expenditure is somebody else's income. So on that analysis it is based. So in that manner, income and expenditure will be always equal, because what I am spending will go as an income to somebody else. So that will be always equal. So E will be always equal to Y. It is in this sense we often say that one man's expenditure is another man's income. Thus, when the society incurs certain expenditure during a given period of time, there is an equal generation of income. That means whenever government or the economy is spending any amount of money, by that amount of money, the income will be generated. So it is on this basis that JB Say, John Baptist Say, has given a famous law of market, that is Say's law of market. So it is based on this assumption that one person's expenditure is another person's income. Thus, according to Keynes, E will always be equal to Y, where that means expenditure will always be equal to income. Now, if an individual spends certain portion of his income on consumption and saves the certain portion of it, then Y is equal to C plus S. See, whatever income we are getting, we are not spending the entire income. Let us take example, if I am getting 10,000 rupees as an income, so I am not going to spend the entire 10,000. So let us say I am spending 8,000 rupees on consumption and 2,000 rupees I am saving. So how, what was my total income? It is 10,000. So 10,000 can be known by adding 8,000 plus 2,000. So 8,000 is my consumption expenditure and 2,000 is my saving. So when I add my consumption and my saving, I'll get my total income. So in the same way, if we want to know the income of entire economy, we have to add the consumption plus saving. So it is always Y is equal to C plus S, consumption plus saving. Again, if we consider the expenditure of the individual or the society, we find that the society incurs expenditure on consumption goods and capital goods, that is investment. Now, the money which I am spending will be either spent for the consumption goods or on the capital goods. If I am a producer also, see, every person is consumer as well as producer. So as a consumer, what I am spending is my consumption expenditure, and as a producer, whatever I am spending is my capital goods expenditure, or I can say it as an investment, because I am spending that money in order to get return or earn out of that. So the total expenditure will be your C plus I, that is consumption expenditure plus investment expenditure. The money which I am spending is either spent for the consumption or for the production. There is no third way of spending the money. Therefore, E is equal to C plus I. Now, if you remember, we have seen that income must be always equal to expenditure. So Y is equal to E. Therefore, the from above equation we can calculate the following equation. We know Y is equal to E. The value of Y is income can be known either by using that consumption and saving. So Y is equal to C plus S and E is equal to C plus I. So Y is equal to C plus S, E is equal to C plus I. For equilibrium, we have to equate these two components. So it will be written as C plus S is equal to C plus I. As consumption is common at both the places, so C and C will be cancelled, and finally we will get an equation known as S is equal to I. So that saving is equal to investment. That is the Keynesian that analysis of that income and expenditure theory. So these are the some basics about the Keynesian analysis or Keynesian theory of income and employment. In next class, we will be discussing the Keynesian theory in detail. Today we have got some basics or understanding of the basic terminology concepts of Keynesian theory of income and expenditure for explaining quantity theory of money. So thank you very much, students, and we'll be meeting in next class. In that we'll be discussing about the Keynesian theory of income and employment in detail, and we'll see the criticisms of Keynesian theory also. Thank you very much.